Welcome to Secrets Unlocked. If you enjoy intimate confessions and forbidden stories, check the private archive linked in the description. Subscribe, settle in, and enjoy the story. Christopher's side. Most people realize that major events shape one's lives. A few accept the smaller ones have the same impact. It happened to me, the smallest, brought about the biggest change. My story. Though I am in my late 30s now, 36 actually, my wife Rachel and I met during the first year of our respective jobs. We hit off well and went steady for about 2 years. I found Rachel possessing all the qualities in a woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with: beautiful, wholesome, and in love with me. We lived in my house for another year together, and I found her to be the perfect homemaker. With Rachel around, I always had a clean house, wholesome food, and no headaches, if you know what I mean. Rachel kept her hair long, loved ABBA, peppermints, and me, and not in that order. Long story short, we married after that. 10 years down the line and 1 son later, we are in a phase where you no longer have to speak to understand what the other is thinking. My boy is the apple of my eye. You should see him fight with me for everything. From the remote control to the PS2 to who gets to sit on the front seat with me when I drive for our annual cross-country vacations. But our pride knows no bounds when we find him sleeping in his little bed at night, at peace, looking like an innocent angel. Every alternate years, Rachel and me attend reunions, whether it's the reunions from her high school, college, or even ones from her advanced education. Rachel never attends the reunions unless I go with her. I love to escort her, to be honest, and her reunions generally consists of meeting good, decent people. I meet many of her friends there. I can recognize most of them in her scrapbooks, albums, digital pics, and whatnots. While each one has their personality and their own quirks, all of them come across as decent, well-settled, and sometimes successful. Often, we'd come across some man or woman whom Rachel would know. They'd tentatively introduce themselves and shriek when they knew each other. They'd exchange a few pleasantries, trade up on war stories, and then move on to the next one, promising to keep in touch after the party. All of Rachel's friends had spouses. A few even brought their kids along, but they were always the first to leave. But that, I presume, is natural. I know when my son was small enough not to be left with a babysitter. He had accompanied us on a couple of these reunions, but was asleep before the party even began. At his age, then, 8:30 p.m. was his sleepy time. To all who wondered why Rachel and myself never went to reunions from my end, it was really quite simple. I had no formal education to speak of. I had a hard childhood and teenage. After learning to read and write, presumably in the first couple of grades, enough to pull on in life, my parents passed away. So I was the only one left to take care of my family of 2 sisters and a brother, all younger to me. I decided against education. Yes, there were night schools, but I was still not mature enough or well-to-do enough to take advantage of that aspect and went to work instead. But since I had no education, I could not get a proper white-collar job, and I had to bring my family up working in the construction business. About the only guys who were concerned how much I could handle physically rather than mentally. I laid bricks, cemented broken walls, mended asphalt on highways, tarred trails, worked in the sun, and passed teenage and most of my 20s doing nothing, but making sure my brothers and sisters got the best. Whatever best I could on my meager salary, that is. However, life never disappointed me. Perhaps in an effort to even the scales, life gave me something best that a man could hope for: love and respect from all my sisters and my brother. No brother or sister of mine took any major decision without first consulting me. And while that meant nothing, and I knew that would change when they would grow up or when they would get someone more important in their lives than their eldest brother, and that they sometimes went against my advice, it still swelled my heart to see them give me enough respect and love by asking for my opinion. When they started earning and could stand on their own feet, they began supporting me financially. I'm proud to say that all 3 were stubborn enough that they refused my offer of not accepting their financial help. So there I was, in my early 30s, having no work, getting money in my account from all my sisters and my brother. That is when I decided to continue the education I had missed. It felt awkward, I had to admit, attending again, and right away I felt out of place. And age. But I got my bachelor's in liberal arts and decided to work for the first guy who would hire me. Not that I needed the money, but you can only sit so long in the house doing nothing, growing fat on the income of your siblings. That is when I had first met Rachel, and the rest, as they say, is history. So here we were, sitting on the table accommodating 12, with lots of Rachel's friends and their spouses, and a god-awful lot of noise, boisterous banter, and chaos everywhere. Seated next to me was Rachel and her best friend, Bethany. Both are quite close to each other. Bethany's husband, Francis, is a distinguished-looking gentleman. He is a poet and his poems earns him big bucks at the European circuit. I thought he was a stuck-up prude when I first met him, but he warmed to me soon after. I never realized poets had such risque jokes in their repertoire. He told jokes that made cowboys blush, and while he'd put on his frigid, uppity behavior when we met someone else with me, he was like another construction worker. Cracking tawdry jokes, drinking beer, laughing boisterously, and having fun. We hit along well too. We came across Bethany and Francis at most reunions, and while they stayed in Europe, they would visit us at least once a year. Or they would make it a point to come to our house when they were touring or promoting his works. I knew Rachel and Bethany were with each other since 3rd grade. And if you've never been tortured before in your life, you should try sitting with two ladies who know each other since 3rd grade and watch them go at it. Everything from the make of the clothes, to food, to the fact the janitor was divorced because he fell in love with someone else, to the fact the carpet in this room stank of rum, and that the music sucked, and that so-and-so was planning to have another baby, was covered between them. And when they started talking about the buttons, their shapes, the clothes, and their color combination on particular materials, I kind of zoned out. Like I said, they were very close to each other. Rachel and Bethany had gone through many partners when they married me and Francis, respectively. Nothing to fret about, as neither were Francis and me virgins when we fell in love and married them. Because of this closeness and familiarity, they chatted about everything in particular, even their boyfriends in high schools and colleges. Among all their boyfriends, they did discuss them loudly. The name Brian kept popping up again and again. Francis and me were familiar with Brian. He was the only one whom both Rachel and Bethany had as a boyfriend, years apart, of course, in their college. They were with him during college. Of course, I had met Brian occasionally in a couple of these reunions. And while Rachel kind of gave an awkward smile and moved off, Bethany generally chatted more freely. A couple of times I also found myself in conversation with Brian. I had long discovered that Brian was a normal guy. He was married, and when he spoke to Rachel or attempted to talk to Bethany, his demeanor was that of an old acquaintance. He was comfortable with them. He always brought his wife, Sable, and both their children along. He always made it a point to speak to Rachel and Bethany with Sable around. He was settled in Tokyo and was quite successful as general manager of an electronics firm there. While he was not there for all reunions, he did come by enough for me to recognize him and Sable from a distance. He seemed to be genuinely in love with his wife and his family. I have to admit, in our earlier years, after hearing discussions about Brian from Rachel, I generally tried to keep an eye on Brian in these reunions. But he always approached Rachel and Bethany with his wife and kids, said hello, spoke for a few moments, then moved off to mingle with other guests. I never saw him as much as raise his head and look at Rachel again. Or Bethany, for that matter. Regular guy, like I told you. Which is why when the name Brian popped up in my subconscious, I knew that Rachel and Bethany were talking about him. While they talked about Brian like they would of any other ex of theirs, today, in this reunion, they were going at it with hammer and tongs. Case in point, Brian's girth. Brian had put on weight in the last couple of years and much resembled the jolly Santa today at this reunion. Not that it mattered to him. He was happy in his own world. But of course, Rachel and Bethany, being who they were, never stopped going at him. "I can't believe Sabs lets him climb atop her," I heard Bethany say. They both guffawed loudly. I think it's more that SHE climbs up on Brian, yeah, retorted Rachel. Yeah, she must be getting her hobby of mountain climbing satisfied right there in her bedroom. Mount Everest in flesh, added Bethany. Laughter from them both. Do you think the way he has blown up nowadays, he can see his own toes? Commented Bethany. More laughter from them. Francis had a smile on his face. It was obvious he was listening to them, but did not want to show them that he was. Probably the same way he used to do. He's quite big that way, you know, replied Rachel. I got just that little wince of discomfort in hearing Rachel say that. But they were talking so animatedly, I figured it must have slipped out. And I can't grudge them that bit. Still, instinctively I looked around for Brian. I needn't have. He was at the buffet with his plate piled on. And Sable, presumably giving him a piece of her mind, pointing again and again at the plate and his stomach. His shoulders were slouched and he seemed to take her jibes like any henpecked husband. Like I said, a normal regular guy who aged normally. I turned my head back to the conversation. I saw Francis was also listening intently at them, a smile still on his face. Poets are quite tolerant, I think you know that. The girls were giggling now. Bethany nodded knowingly, a far-off look in her face. Sometimes it went beyond two, eh? Continued Rachel. I was getting distinctly uncomfortable. Listening to your wife talk about how good things were with her boyfriend during college days is always a little unnerving. Bethany whispered to Rachel, as if it were a secret only the two of them had experienced, mentioning how intimidating it had felt at first, but adding that she missed the excitement of those days. I could see the smile disappearing off Francis' face. He looked at me as if to say, why the fuck are they talking about this? Rachel continued excitedly, reminiscing about the intensity of past experiences and asking Bethany if she remembered those times. I could see Bethany scanning the faces of everyone in her memories, thinking about the old days when her eyes stopped on Francis, and his frown, and ice in his eyes. Suddenly stopping, looking at Francis, and realizing that her husband was listening and not liking it, Bethany's face had an expression that you get when you throw cold water on someone's face. I think she came to from whatever high it was that she had. A washed-out expression spread on her face when she realized the effect her statements must have had on Francis. She loved him, and he was the only one for her. And she didn't want something from her past to affect her present. Francis was her future. Her face told me she realized how close she had come to a full-blown insult to Francis, and buttoned up. But Rachel, continuing, not seeing what was going around, was too deep into it. Bethany looked up to Rachel sharply, as if signaling to her that it had gone far enough. Forget it, Ratch, that was then. Now our husbands are our only true love. They are our future, our lives. No need of thinking about our past. We don't live there anymore. And I think nothing compares to our relationship with our husbands. Nobody. Our husbands are our universe now. She said, still smiling, but motioning to ask Rachel to shut up and trying to soften the blow for Francis and myself by reassuring us of their love and devotion. But Rachel was too much into it to pick up the visual clue Bethany had provided. Then she made a mother of a statement. You know, till today, I have never been more fully satisfied in a relationship with anyone except Brian. He was the only one. I paused midway to my sip of the wine glass. What did she just say? The awkward silence between the three of us brought Rachel out of her funk. As soon as she said that, she realized what she had just uttered. Her head jerked immediately towards me, even as her hand went to her mouth. She gasped when she saw me with my wine glass paused halfway to my lips, my mouth agape. The anger spread, from my spine to the back of my neck and finally, my eyes and lips. Francis had turned dead serious. Bethany had an expression that must have told Rachel that she had gone past her limit. She realized how bad her comments sounded to everyone around. Her eyes became wide with understanding at the implications of her last statement. To me, to both of us, to our happiness and our marriage, to our marital bliss. She looked at me in the shock of realization. The moment she saw me, she knew our life would never be the same again. In a single sentence, she had declared that Brian was more fulfilling to her than anyone she had experienced so far. Even me, her husband of 10 years. That despite all happiness and security and love I provided, she still remembered her past relationship because it was the best with him. That the intimacy and security we shared was not worth talking about in public, and that her past with Brian was apparently exciting enough that she could still remember it 10 years after marriage, one son and a husband who loved her, and was worth commenting for in public. That no one satisfied her like he did, ever. In a single sentence, she just emasculated me. Broken that space shared only between husband and wife. And while normally, this would have been acceptable to share it with your spouse, in private, though begrudgingly, it was the worst statement she could have made in public. I did not know if she was going with the flow, or she had genuinely said it. But all of a sudden I felt inadequate and a lot angry. It seemed like a betrayal of the most insidious kind. I gritted my teeth and refrained from commenting to her look or to the fact that everyone around were looking at the four of us, understanding that something was amiss. Now, if you were any man, a real man, you'd probably have been pissed too, but would have advised me to be strong enough to man it out and continue. After all, it was just a comment uttered in the heat of the moment by my wife who loved me, took care of me, my home and my son. From a woman who had given so much to me. While there was no need to not get angry, it was nothing to be taken so seriously. It was just that. A comment, not a picture of my ability to satisfy my wife. But you did not see the earnestness in Rachel's face. You did not see the twinkle in her eyes. You did not see the subtle shift in her posture. You did not see her fingers swirl around lazily along the rim of her wineglass. You did not see her happiness at that. You were not there. Oh God, no, Chris, that's not how I meant for it to come out. Please, honey, was all she said before I got up from my chair and walked towards the exit. Hash. After I walked towards the exit, I had to walk all the way towards where my car was parked. Rachel was along me all the time. She was clutching my elbow, blubbering, apologizing, begging me to overlook that, telling me how stupid she was, and what she meant while talking about Brian was that it was long then, and that for the last 13 years she loved me, that I was her only one and that I was the most important person in the world to her. And she loved our son and that I satisfied her completely and deeply, like no man ever did to her before. But you know how it is. When something hits you bad, that is all you remember. He was the only one who satisfied me fully. That statement ran repeatedly in my head. And that was making all statements Rachel was uttering about how good I was and about how I satisfied her, just that bit more hard to believe. She did not give up. Instead, she began running circles around me, telling me how much she loved me, and that our relationship was the most important and satisfying than anything else in the world, and that I was the only one who gave her the intensity she had never had in her life before, and that Brian and all others were nothing compared to what I did when I lost it. And I suppose I also knock at your door when I have sex, I asked coldly. Cruel, the look on her face told me she realized what she had done. She knew she had made a mistake. Big one, the force of its impact taking her breath away. What was she going to say? Forget it, Chris, it was just a comment. This was not something that wives say to their husbands to get something from them. This was not a comment which wives generally use, such as, "You're lazy, see how Tom, our neighbor, mows the lawn," or that, "Don't drink so much, I don't think you can take it." Or some such harmless comment that is actually meant to goad the men into doing something they don't like, but the wife does. Generally in matters of the house and the kids. But this was different. It was a direct attack on my masculinity. And the fact that she uttered this when she was not aware, or trying to drive home a point, or trying to intentionally hurt me, made it all the more real. And scary. In the last 12-13 years, Rachel had never complained, and we always had a good relationship. But now to hear her words was unbearable. Nowhere in hell I could ever compare to what he had been to her a decade ago. The cat was out of the bag, no way it was going back in. I looked at her in the eye when I asked that question. I could see her throat constrict in misery at what she had done to me. I knew she really regretted it. I knew she loved me, really loved me, and I thought of overlooking what she had said. But the way she had said it, her body language when she had said it, the lilt in her voice and the faraway look in her eyes when she had said it, made it difficult for me to forget. Her face took on the expression that told me she could cry any moment. Thankfully, I had reached the car by then. I opened the driver's door, started the ignition and put the car in gear and moved ahead. I could see her huddling, her head down, her body shaking in my rear-view mirror. I knew finally that she had broken down. "Chris, open up, I'd like to talk." Great, so now she sends Francis to talk to me. What was I going to do? To hear Francis knocking on my door, in my own home, asking to let in, meant he and Bethany had accompanied her to the house. Thankfully, our son was at her mother's. Just a coincidence in the normal routine of having a babysitter instead. "Francis," I said, then paused. What do I say to him? That I am upset my wife thinks our intimacy is not enough. That I feel my wife had broken my confidence by implying that she had never been fully satisfied by me. What do you say? "Not in the mood, buddy. Please make yourselves at home, but I'm not coming out," I said. "No, you're not. Then just let me come in at least," he said, standing outside my room. Well, if nothing, I figured he'd bore me to death with one of his poems if I did not open the door. Funny, how you can think of the most humorous things in the saddest parts of your life. So I unlatched the door and let him in. "Aren't you taking this a tad too seriously, Chris?" That was the first thing he said. I did not reply, but continued looking at him. "Look, if you ask me, don't let it get to you. All of us know how much Rachel loves you. It was something at the spur of the moment. Bate was into it too. I don't let that upset me," he added. "Besides, if you're not in the mood to forgive and forget, I'd suggest you sleep it out alone today. Tomorrow is Sunday. Do nothing tomorrow, but stay in the house and reestablish your boundaries. You need to make her understand your position, assert your place in her life, and completely overshadow any memories of Brian. Then, in the evening, take a bath together, go out for a candle-light dinner, come back home, and show her your love and the life you both share. Sleep in each other's arms. Cherish your love. I guarantee by morning day after, you'll feel all this was childish and not worth ruining a great relationship for." He said this in one breath, waiting for my response. "Francis," I said, looking balefully at him, "this is not one of your editors telling you your poems are crap and that someone else's are better. Unlike your editor's trashy reviews about your poems, which inspire you to write better poems, this is not that. You're mixing things up in your head." I finished. I could see hesitation in his eyes, but more importantly, I could see shock at my cruel remarks about something he felt so personal about. His poems. And that me, Christopher, his close friend, was the one to utter these words. "I see, Chris," he said. He turned to walk away. He seemed hurt. I could see him trying to preserve the dignity of this conversation by trying to walk away from this verbal fight, but it was clear he was hurting bad. That was a low blow. Unfair. "Francis," I called out to him. He turned over and looked at me, hurt still evident on his face about the way I spoke to him. "If tearing down your poems does this to you, imagine what you would feel if Bethany humiliated you publicly about your intimate life." "Oh God," he said, his eyes wide open. I think this time, the nail hit the spot. RACTLS sighed. "I think he's taking the hurt part a bit too far," I said. Bethany and myself were sitting on the coffee table. Francis had gone upstairs to talk some sense into Chris. "I don't want to comment till Francis returns, Ratch," replied Bethany tersely. I was upset. Upset and ashamed. Ashamed that I was stupid enough to say something that could hurt my husband of 10 years this bad. Upset that I did not see what Bethany was trying to do when she uttered that husbands are our universe, thing, and gesturing me to shut up. Upset that I should be thinking about Brian, that too in the presence of my husband. It was more than long ago, and I need not have brought up those memories. Not in front of everyone, and definitely not in front of my loving husband. God, I loved my husband. And I was upset I had hurt him with my insensitive and flippant comment. What was I doing even reminiscing about my lover when I was married? That was a closed chapter in my life. But I was also very hurt to see that Christopher take offense to such a small thing. Now granted, it was stupid of me to say this aloud, much less in front of all my friends. I should not have started that conversation in the first place. Granted, I am guilty, totally, but Chris need not have put on such a show, I said, not really believing this was still happening. Maybe he felt you, how do you put it? Yup, he felt he did not satisfy you, responded Bethany. I sat up straight. Come on, I said, with more force than necessary. Bait, you know he satisfies me perfectly. I don't even secretly wish that things were any different. You know it, we've discussed this over years. What we have together is better than anyone, I said, even Brian or anyone else. I added. Sure didn't look that way when you were mooning over Brian's memories, Ratch, she replied. I tried to find humor in her voice. There was none. I wearily slumped in my seat. This was all a bad mistake. I had to open my mouth and talk about Brian. I am so stupid. Bethany got up to make coffee and made 2 cups, placing one before me. Drinking deeply, I regained some of my composure. I mean it, Bait. He totally, completely, and with all my heart satisfies me. I love him, I said, as if that would make things right. And not because of the way he makes me feel secure. I am really attracted to him. I am perfectly content and happy the way it is. With my husband. With our intimacy, I don't even think of Brian or anyone else's for that matter. No one else has that right to access this secret garden of mine except Chris. And I am always content and glowing with our closeness. And the way it makes me feel, I added. Bethany just nodded, and I felt frustrated. I got the feeling this little speech was doing nothing to convince Bethany. Do you think I don't love Chris? I asked. There are benefits to having a best friend since 3rd grade. Of course you do, she replied evenly. So, I countered. It's just that he does not satisfy you like Brian does, she added smoothly. This time I lost it. What are you talking about, Bait? I love him. I love my husband. I keep telling you no one satisfies me more. I don't want anyone but my husband, I said, almost on the verge of shouting. Sure you do. I said you and he love each other, she paused. But that don't mean he's better than Brian. I mean, at least as far as you are concerned. That's what you said back there, honey, she continued coolly. I mean, he doesn't compare to Brian, does he? She added. Bethany, I shouted this time, what the hell is wrong with you? Can't you see that Chris satisfies me perfectly the way he is, and I don't have any complaints or fantasies? I was determined to get the point across to Bethany. Then Ratch, she added, looking at me directly in the eye, why the fuck did you say that Brian satisfied you better? What the hell were you thinking? Come on, Bait, I almost cried out, you were doing it too. Yes, I was, but I realized in time what impact it was having on my Francis. Why didn't you? What took you so long to realize that talking about how much your ex-boyfriend satisfied you is an absolute no-no? And why in the world was that fucking comment about only Brian being able to satisfy you? That implied no one else, including Chris, could not, she asked. I was shocked and I choked up. No, stupid mistake was not it, that was not the word. The word was grave mistake. Bait was right. What the hell was I even doing, talking about my previous relationships in front of my loving husband in the first place? Forget about what I commented, why was I even discussing our private life in front of the man I loved? How could I just do that? God, I was so bloody insensitive and stupid. How I wished I could take it all back. I took a deep swig of the coffee. And then met Bait's eyes. Bait, you know it. It was just a spur of the thing, Bait. I was now pleading. Mercifully, Bait's stance softened. I agree with you, Ratch. You probably just thought about it, remembered the good times, and forgot about it even before the sentence ended. But that's not the way Chris sees it, she said. For him, it was a statement of how he could not satisfy you. You virtually emasculated him there, honey. In front of everyone, you pointed out that he cannot satisfy you. No, I did not, I said, slamming the cup on the table. All I did was to say that no one satisfied me, and my mouth fell open at that realization. "Oh God," was all I could say, before I felt the beginning of tears starting. "Oh holy God," was all I could think of saying. I knew it in my heart. There was only one man who loved me and satisfied me. No one ever came close. And that was Chris. So why the hell did I just talk shit about Brian in front of Chris and the crowd? I didn't know. I wanted Chris to know, to understand, that there was no man that was more important to me than he was, and no one pleased me more than he did in our life together, bar none. He was the complete man for me. He was my universe. This was something I needed to talk to Chris with, convince him about. Of course, there would always be someone better, but in a philosophical sense. For me, Chris was my only lover and husband that I ever wanted. One I intended to keep and stay old with, forget Brian and all my lovers before I married. But first, I had to get my Chris back. In this frame of mind, he was not my husband. He was just someone whose manhood had been insulted by the stupid mistake of a wife who could not think beyond her boyfriend and her life before marriage in the first place. God, why did I even go there? There was nothing there anyways. No one could compare to my husband. Not to me. No one even came close. I was so stupid to talk like that. I should have really cut my tongue to hurt him so. Just why the fuck did I do it? I drank deeply from the cup. Thinking, while I did. I went on thinking till the cup drained completely. Then I straightened on the chair and looked at Bate again, resolve in my eyes. But then would you not say that what he did was also mean, in a way, to walk out in front of everyone, to make me cry in the parking lot? I asked. Bethany did not reply. None was necessary. She just kept on looking at me with an expression that said, "Do you realize how stupid you sound making that pompous statement?" I realized how stupid that logic sounded. I was getting confused. I just didn't know what I was going to do. I was feeling lost and totally at sea. When I heard Francis come down the stairs. He was plodding heavily, and he looked directly at Bethany, and shook his head as if to say no. "Oh my God," was all I could say before the tears came. "How does this happen, Bate?" I asked, bewildered, and slightly angry. Why the hell are men so self-conscious about their adequacy? Both Bethany and Francis continued looking at me. I mean, that's it in the end, is it not? He felt inadequate the moment I told him that Brian satisfied me better, because he thought it meant that I was comparing my satisfaction to what he could provide. He knows, I know, he is different from Brian. The fact that he satisfies me completely and he is enough for me, that Brian is history, but Chris is my reality, is of no importance, is it not? No, he cannot see that, but he just has to compare this mentally, isn't that it? That comparison. Why the fuck are men so sensitive about it? I asked. I mean, sure, even Chris jokes that things are different after one child. Sure, I know that, but I don't take offense to that. Why the hell are they so sensitive about their masculinity? I asked, fear seeping from my voice, not really willing to accept the train of thought that it was offensive, what I did back there at the reunion, which would be too much for me to bear. Feeling the tension build? Thousands of more private stories are waiting in my exclusive archive. The link is in the channel description. I was trying to save myself here, and my marriage. It's a male thing, is it not? Their bloody sensitivity to that. They want to be the guy with the most masculinity in the room. I don't understand why the hell they are so primitive when it comes to their ego, I asked. I decided to press on, when I saw no responses forthcoming from either of them. Why are they so easily offended if we joke about their performance? I continued. Because you were not joking, first point, said Francis. Both me and Bate stared at him. He was not the one to get in between a domestic matter between two friends, so this was something new, something unanticipated. To hear what Francis had to say, to hear him speak where he had never spoke before was new. Secondly, he said, men are never conscious about their inherent traits. Both me and Bethany looked at each other and then at him. This was the worst piece of crock I had ever heard. Ever? Are you serious, Francis? I asked, still not believing that a mature and worldly wise man like Francis could make such a statement. Yes, dead, he said. But honey, everything we know about you, about men, says otherwise. chimed Bethany. Then you and Rachel, and anyone else who believes so don't know anything about men, he continued solemnly. What do you mean? I asked. This was something far-reaching, something way different than that I had been hearing since my teenage. Men don't care about their physical attributes, you just got to be kidding me. You see, he stated simply, men don't care about their physical attributes. They care about the subsequent implications. Both me and Bate sat in silence. What the hell in good fuck was Francis talking about? Implications. Men not interested in how they measure up. Was he from the same planet? Francis must have looked at our faces. He sighed, then went on. Men don't care about the exact measurements, but the implications of those measurements. That is what causes them to be sensitive. You see, men fear that being average will not please a partner. The physical trait itself does not matter, but the implication that they will not satisfy a partner. That is what gets them upset. Of course, everybody thinks, including what's written in popular literature, that men are upset because of their physical traits. It's not the trait. Damn it, it's never been about that. It's what it can do, or lack of it cannot, that is what upsets them, he said. And Rachel, you never commented on his average attributes. You commented on what men fear the most, the implication of being average, that it cannot satisfy a partner. And when you said no one ever satisfied you like Brian, you acted on that implication. He was not hurt because it implied he was average. He was hurt because it implied he did not please you, he finished. Both Bate and myself were staring at him with open mouths. I was closer to tears now. Francis, honey, I still cannot believe it, said Bate incredulously. Sure, said Francis. Tell a man he has slender fingers, or stubby fingers, or wobbly legs, or spindly arms. Is he offended? Somewhere, something was beginning to make sense. But it was such a drastic departure from what I, or Bate, or everyone was typically conditioned to know throughout our lives, that we still found it difficult to believe. All right, I said. I agree with you, just for the time being. Still, why the hell did he make so much of a fuss over so small a thing? I asked. And this time, before Francis could answer, Bate did. Because, for him, it's important, because he's a man, and you cannot relate to him in that department, because you're a woman. This time it was Bethany. I stared at Bethany. What do you mean, Bate, that I cannot relate to it? I asked. You see, Ratch, she continued, men place the ability to satisfy a partner up there with the top two things in their lives. But women place love, children, and security as the top priority things in their lives. Sure, intimacy is very, very important to a woman as well. It's just that it's not their very top priority. If he joked about how crappy a homemaker you were, you'd be far more angry than if he mentioned how lousy a partner you were. Would it not? She queried. I had to admit it was making sense, but I was afraid, and fear sometimes does not allow you to accept your mistakes. Sorry, Bate, I announced. I still don't get it. I still can't relate to it. I still cannot believe that he would react in this way, I said. Then let me help you relate, interjected Francis. We both looked at him as he took a deep breath and looked at me in the eye. Rachel, would you feel bad if your husband told you that one of his exes was far better in those intimate moments, and that you were never able to please him the way she did? He asked. Of course, I responded, but I'd take it in my stride because I know it could be, and I would never have sulked and gotten angry at him for telling it. I added. Yes, that's because of what Bates said, that women don't really have that as their top two priorities when they look for a life mate. Okay then, he said. Now, how about Chris telling in front of his friends that Harry is a mentally challenged child? My eyes grew wide. Why the hell was Francis bringing Harry, our son, into it? What? I asked. That Harry is a spastic, that your son drools on his plate and has no motor movement coordination, he continued. What? I asked. It was too fast. I was getting angrier and angrier. My only point was don't get my son into it. My son was my highest priority, right after Chris. Are you there yet? Continued Francis. Huh, I muttered. How does it feel for Chris to say that Harry wets his bed even at this age? Francis seemed to be on a roll. "That's enough, Francis," I shouted. "Don't talk about Harry this way." I was passing angry looks to Bethany, asking her to control what Francis was saying. Bethany was just sitting there, staring intently at me. "Why, is Harry really that bad?" "No," I shouted. "Did I just blurt out the truth about Harry?" he asked. "No, even close," I nearly shouted. "So you mean to say I was lying all the time and speaking all trash?" he continued. "You don't say," I retorted sharply. Why the fuck are you so upset about it if it's not the truth? After all, it's just a small thing, is it not? You know that Harry is not mentally challenged, so why are you getting so pissed up?" he asked calmly. "You see, Ratch," that was bait, "you feel your anger exploding because you care about Harry. While Harry and Chris pride are two completely different things, the intensity you feel when someone slags your son is the same Chris feels when you slagged his ability to please you. That's what I meant when I said you can't relate to his hurt, because he was a man and you are a woman. Because as a woman, your son is the top 2 priority in your life. Just as Chris' ability to satisfy a partner is for him. And honey, you just took it away. Here, in front of only the 3 of us, you blew up when we spoke about Harry. Can you imagine what happened to Chris when you spoke about his shortcomings in front of everyone?" she added. "But I never said Chris never satisfied me," I exclaimed. "Sure, but Brian satisfied you better. That's what you implied, didn't you? You see, husbands have to be the number 1 in a few things in your life. Feeling satisfied is one of them. For the husband, at least. And there you were, mooning over how much better Brian was. Even if you didn't mean it to come out the way it did, explained Bate. "So tell me, why did you feel so offended at Francis slagging Harry?" she asked again. My God. The steam went from my body. My eyes grew wide. No, this could not be happening. Because, God, I could not think of anything to say. "Because it's not how you're supposed to talk about my son," I blurted out, finally, having no answer to the questions that my mind was now throwing at me. I looked at Francis. "No, Rachel," he said softly, "it's because you relate to it now. And I knew that talking about Harry would get you on the edge. I should not have said this. But I still did," he added. "So, how do you feel now?" I was close to tears. How did I feel now? That bastard. I was hurting more than ever. Why drag my innocent son into this? There was nothing wrong with him. He was my son. I loved him. Why did he have to speak such things about him? Why did he? Did I then? My God, was that it? It was a small thing for me, and this Harry thing was huge for me. And was it the same for Chris? Small for me but huge for him? My God, is this what it felt like? Did the hurt take so much from him? The revelation was too much. I was starting to tear up. Oh God, was all I kept saying. "You see, Rachel," his voice was very soft now, "for you, it was a statement. For him it was serious. Just the way the statement about your son was serious for you, but not serious enough for me. If Chris did get angry at my statement about Harry, do you think the intensity of his anger would be the same level as yours?" "Nowhere even near close, Rachel," he said. "Do you get it now?" he finished. "No," I said. I was standing up now. Anger, mixed with guilt, and a realization that it may not have been that minor a thing began taking a hold of me, and I was scared. Scared to figure out what this meant. The implications, my God. Accepting the implications would make me a serious offender in the eyes of my husband. I reacted with fear, and like everyone in fear, I reacted unreasonably, refusing to see the light of the day even though everything lay bare before me now. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. This is crap. You just cannot relate what you said with what I said to Christopher. You just cannot. They are 2 different things. You're doing this on purpose. I was shouting now. And it was now becoming obvious to both of them that I was indeed getting it. "Bate, please, just leave now, Bate. Both of you, leave my house now, please. I don't want to talk to you guys for some time now." I was breathing hard now. I swear if Francis stayed back, I'd physically attack him with the kitchen knife or something for slagging my son. Oh God, is this what Chris felt about me then? Dear God, how stupid could I have been? What had I done? "No problems, Rachel," said Bate. That statement made me realize I had made another serious blunder. After all, it was so strange to hear Bate addressing me as Rachel and not Ratch. She had not done that in the last 5 years or so that I remembered. Unless she was very, very angry at me. A few seconds passed after my outburst at Bate and Francis, without any one of us doing anything. Then Bethany stood up and nodded to Francis. Without saying a word, both of them walked towards the door. Just as they were about to open it, I shouted, "Bate, wait." They stopped, a look of anger flashing on Bate's face. I ran to them as fast as I could. Then I stood near them, tears streaking my eyes. And in a move completely unexpected by either Bate or Francis, I leaned forward and embraced Bate tightly. She seemed surprised, but returned the hug. "Oh God, Bate, I am so sorry. I never meant to ask you to leave. You were only trying to. Francis, I am ashamed. I am sorry. Please," was all I could mutter. Francis smiled, and when I released Bate, I could see that she too was smiling. "No, Ratch, we understand," she said, and when I looked up to her, she nodded her head in a positive motion. "Really?" she added. "Francis," I started to say, but he stopped me mid-sentence. "No, Rachel, I'd like to apologize about Harry, but I wanted you to feel what Chris felt," he concluded. "Francis," I said, "I still cannot completely relate what you said about Harry and what I said to Chris. And I don't want to lie to you both, my best pals. I don't think I probably will," I said. "But I am willing to admit that I was very stupid in doing what I did there, admit that I hurt my husband badly, and concede that what I commented about Brian was not only uncalled for and in bad taste, but also more serious than I cared to admit." I blurted out. "Then that is enough for us, Ratch," replied Bate, one of her hands still clutched in mine for supporting me. "And we'll do whatever we can to help you and Chris tide this over," replied Francis. I was relieved and just kind of slumped in her arms. She supported me, then took me over to the kitchen table again. "Bate, thanks," was all I could tell her. She smiled. She made another pot of coffee for me, put a single cup in front of me, and as I began to drink, turned to leave. "Bate, I said I was sorry," I replied, panicking again, dropping the cup to the table. "No, honey," she replied, "we're not angry any longer. We just need you to understand that we are always there for you." "Then why?" I asked. "Because you need to put an end to it, sweetheart, and you are the only one who can finish it," said Bethany, even as she and Francis walked towards the door. "But Bate," I shouted after her, "what do? I don't know," I said. "Sweetie," she said, a grim expression on her face, "unfortunately, that is something I have no idea about." She gently closed the door after they both had stepped outside, after Bate had blown me a kiss. With my husband in the bedroom who wouldn't speak to me, with my guilt over how I could have allowed this, even accidentally, and most importantly, how I had no ideas what to say to Chris that would make all this go away and bring our happy life back to where it was. With Bate and Francis out of our house, just me and Chris. I felt so alone. And for the first time, I began fearing for our marriage. The tears, though, came unbidden as I gently wept and rocked myself in the darkness. I awoke to find everything as I had left it when I must have fallen asleep. The sleep did not come easy. For the first time in my life, I had cried myself to sleep. What made matters worse was that every time I thought about how bad I felt, I would remember how bad it would have been for Chris. And my guilt worsened. There was no one I hated more in this world more than myself right now. And I knew that if I did not do anything about it soon, I would find our marriage languishing in the doldrums. It would be very hard, but I had to make amends to my Chris. The problem was, how do you tell your husband that he satisfied you completely when you have unconsciously blurted out that he would never be able to rise to the level of your old boyfriend? I had no answer. This situation was the first time in its occurrence, and I was ill-equipped to handle it. This was not an on-off switch that you turned on and off at will. How do you reassure your husband that he does matter? That he is the number one? Would always remain so? And more importantly, how do you prevent that germ of a thought taking place in his mind every time he held you or tried to be intimate with you in the future, that perhaps you were, unconsciously, comparing him to your older boyfriend. This was not as trivial as I thought it was. And that scared the hell out of me. The most fearsome thought, however, was what happened when he found out that he could no longer be intimate with me because of that mental image of me and my ex-boyfriend. Because of that mental image that I went wild when this happened. Images and sounds that I so foolishly put in my husband's head. How do you get past this? Dear God, I had absolutely no idea, but the panic that filled me at that thought wanted me to immediately go up and speak with Chris. I didn't care at this point that I was not prepared. I had to speak with Chris and do my best to love him and reassure him that he was, and always would be my main man. Hurriedly, I brushed, took a bath, and keeping the coffee on the burner, I ran up as fast as I could to climb upstairs to the bedroom. I waited near the closed door for the moment, then gingerly knocked. Chris, I called out. I dared not use my usual call, honey or darling. That would seem too self-serving. Chris, you there, sweetheart. Well, I tried, but it inevitably slipped out. Sweetheart, right. But I had to talk to Chris, so I pushed these thoughts back and knocked again. Chris, I asked, a little loudly this time. Strange, there was no response. By the fourth knock, I began getting worried. I hope he did not do anything in his current state. When all of a sudden, the realization hit me square in the guts. And why God, he had taken sleeping pills. He was in the bathroom with his wrists slit and blood everywhere. He had taken an overdose of, well, something. Thoughts ran unbidden in my mind. Horror suddenly piled up on my heart. Oh my God, my Chris. Somewhere, far away though, my thoughts were distracted by what seemed to be the distant ringing of a telephone. A couple or rings more, and I realized I was still standing outside the bedroom door, and the phone was ringing in our hall. My panic, though, showed no signs of abating. The phone rang and I continued to ignore it, wanting to talk to my Chris first. But its persistence would not go away. It suddenly occurred to me that it had to be bait, wanting to ask me about how things were, and I had to tell her that my Chris had, in the bedroom, because of me, cut, wrists, blood, sleeping pills, something, anything. Oh God, bait. I ran down and picked it up in its seventh ring. Mary. Chris, I shouted, half with terror, half with relief, half with God knows what feeling. Where are you? I'm trying to get in our bedroom and you never answered. Oh God, Chris, I was so worried that you. Pipe down and listen up, Mary. Chris spoke from the other end. I froze. He rarely used this tone in the house or around me. Chris, I mewed softly in the phone, not sure where this was getting to. Dear God, please, don't let him divorce me over this stupid mistake of mine. I was thinking furiously what I should say to Chris when he spoke again. I will be back home in the evening, or in a day or two, I am not sure, but I don't want you pestering me with calls to my cell. You've messed me up yesterday. Don't mess this up now. Don't call me until I call again. He spoke authoritatively. Actually ordered. Chris, what? I began, but he cut me off again. And I will not tell this to you again. I am all right. I just need time off. From you, he stated. My heart stopped a couple of beats at that last statement. Okay, Chris, but what I mean are you? I started. But it was too late. He had already disconnected the phone. And I wondered about his strange request. Just what was Chris wanting to do? I hope you enjoyed this story. More intimate confessions are waiting in the private archive linked in the description. Subscribe for the next story.